Welcome to AbilityMKE Now. My name is Sue Roskoff. AbilityMKE Now is a show all about integration, bringing people with disabilities and people that don't have a disability together, enjoying life here in the Milwaukee area. We all have different abilities, and at AbilityMKE Now, we dive into this topic of diverse abilities. The concept of disability hits a wide range of possibilities. We could be talking about physical or mental disabilities, the deaf and hard of hearing community, blindness, chronic pain, mental health diagnosis, goals of substance use reduction, and the list goes on. We all have our own experience with disability, whether it's our own, with people we know, or with people we encounter in our daily lives. Here at AbilityMKE Now, we break down the barriers and celebrate the ability in all of us. I am so excited today to be sharing a wonderful lady with all of you, and this is Alissa Bickar. I am excited to hear more about the Consultress and what that exactly all means to all of us, because I've heard so many good things already. I'm excited to hear more. Welcome, Alissa.
Hi, Sue. Thanks a million for having me. I am known as the Consultress. It comes with a bow, but for me, what it means is the grace of being able to integrate the doing of life and business, like the transactional stuff, our strategies, and how we go about implementing with who we're actually being in this world of disruption, and how we are all now awakening to what actual creativity and purpose lies within us. My focus is on the workaholic entrepreneur who is so jazzed to create value in this world that sometimes we leave ourselves on the back burner. But how to purposely integrate all of that in the grand pursuit of progress, of evolution. So for me, I am personally a real estate investor and a business coach. So helping folks understand that doing business and being in business are not the same thing, but how to make friends with both sides of your personality, your left brain, tactical, strategic thinking, as well as your right brain, creative, essential, trusting flow. Because I find that in today's day and age, the hustle and the grind is very much about burnout and exhaustion if you really look deep at its roots. So my goal in life is to live aligned and authentically. I've gone through so much evolution as far as being and being able to allow that to come forward in terms of what I do in business and in life. So that's basically the hill that I stand on in terms of helping people become one with who they are and what they do.
Wow, that speaks to so many people I know, myself included, wearing all the hats and doing all the things, and we got to do more. We got to, trying to balance it all it's hard. I often hear, so I work at a university, and I know with working with a lot of the students there, a comment that I hear often is something like, why isn't there like an adult 101 class? How do you learn to adult? How do you, and it's fun to be in that role, to be able to talk with them on that level of, oh yeah, you have a landlord now? There's things you should, there's, where do you learn these things? How do you figure out how to put things though in balance with all of the things? So what you're speaking to hits me pretty hard, actually, as I hear that, because personally, I don't know that I keep things in balance well enough. We're busy. We do stuff all the time. And how do you approach somebody when somebody comes to you? Are they ahead of the curve of what's happening that way, or are they at that point already like, I'm drowning here, help me?
It's kind of a little bit of both, I find, because the balance that I think we all want to achieve is like this perfect homeostasis that doesn't actually exist anywhere. So we're constantly pushed by our culture to say like, oh, if you're well balanced, you're zen all the time, you never freak out. It's kind of crap. But then we put pressure on ourselves to be that perfect. And so when I find people really where we are is this, like, I know I'm meant for something great, but I feel like I'm pulled in many directions to the point where I feel like I've got ADD. I feel like I'm, going a million miles an hour in 100 different directions and going nowhere fast. So it starts to feel like a grind. It starts to feel really hamster wheel-ish, or things aren't fun anymore, and I'm just kind of drudging through, going through the motions. So the act of reflecting and acknowledging what's already working is sometimes just that stopgap that I find that I need, and my clients find that they need, so that you can stop, smell the roses, and say, okay, what's good? Because our brains are wired. Like, as humans, we are wired to find the anomalies, to find the problems, to find out what's not working and go, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And those of us who know that this is our tendency, we know that when we feel that way, it just means there's opportunity for growth. So helping people redefine what it looks like, what it means when we start to tip into that frenzied feeling or that burnout feeling, how to make best use of that and put it in context. I say that because, there are a lot of different hats that everyone wears, especially the entrepreneurs that are business focused. They're looking always to continue and create what they've started and to build it and do even more. And the myth of doing more is like, I'm going to split myself in 5 and I'm going to do 5 different things. But the reality is it's a mindset shift that goes into like less is more. But when we're in that frantic energy, less is more does not make any sense whatsoever. So really coming into identifying what's good and then what I choose to move forward, because that myth that like my to-do list is going to be checked off at some point and I'm not going to have anything to do. I can just put my feet up and relax. Like, if that's the magic you're waiting for, just like continue to hold your breath and feel like you're breathing. Like, it doesn't happen. But being honest about that, I think, is the first step to recovery.
Because I think, again, I feel like I'm soaking this one in because I relate to so much of what you're saying. I'm that person with the checklist, and I'm like, I got to get all this stuff done. And then I can't get it all done. And wait, I've just added more things to my list, and so did that person, and this person told me I got to do this, and whoa, yeah. I think about, as you were talking, one thing that happens that I think does not get noticed often is caregiver burnout. I'm familiar with a place actually local here that it's a retreat for caregivers, because I think when we think about folks with disabilities who need assistance in some fashion, they need somebody that can help them. And often it's a family member, and they do it forever. It's something that it's just part of what they do. And where do they get help? How do they take care of their needs in the process and not get lost in the shuffle? Have you had many people in that role, in kind of a caregiver kind of role, that come to you and say, oh my, how do I do all this? Because I've met people who they want to do all the things, they feel guilty when they don't. And it's like, you got to take care of you too.
Yep. This is something I personally experienced as a mother. You talk about caregiver in the infinitum. Like, as women, for the most part, we're always taking care of somebody. And a lot of my clients who are entrepreneurs in their own right are mothers. And the path that I took, well, I was a professional, and then I had children, and then I realized I was going to homeschool them. So, I had this juxtaposition of business and caregiver, plus like muse and guide and teacher, all crammed into this identity of who I am. And I had to create different spaces for different aspects of my devotion of time and energy. Forget about resources in terms of money, but if you think about your bandwidth as far as what you have to offer the world. I just had a conversation with a client who is in this very same position. She's got a small child at home, and she is the main caregiver. Her household is set up so that there are certain days where other folks are taking care and bringing her child to and from other stuff. But she, as an entrepreneur now, had to figure out, when do I work, when do I mom, and when do I take care? Like, because you have to have time to take care of yourself. Otherwise, if you're giving from empty, no one gets the benefit of you. And that's part of the problem, is understanding that taking time for yourself is not selfish. It's the thing that fills you up so that you can continue to give. And so I love that you have this retreat space for caregivers, because that notion of if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. It's the same whether or not you're caring for children or aging parents or folks with disabilities. Like it's almost like an imperative that the suffer to succeed industrial model doesn't give us by default. It's like, go all the way, do all the things, and then what's left over, you'll be able to give to yourself. Well, you have to flip that upside down. You have to invert that for your own sanity and for the benefit of the people that you serve, because that's the model that right now is being questioned across the globe. Are we still in this suffer to succeed model? No, we're not. We are in the age of disruption, where everything is accelerating. Old systems are dying hard because they no longer honor the human in us as well as the doer in us. Like, these things are now, it really wasn't ever this way, but now more than ever, we're starting to recognize without wholeness of an individual, you don't have progress, you don't have service, you don't have value. And yes, I may speak in the entrepreneur lane, but this is a human issue. We are now actively addressing and looking at systems that pull us out of that who I am and put us squarely in the position of like, well, if it doesn't feed me as an individual, I'm going to resent this system eventually. So why don't I just knock this off? So the imperative right now is take care of yourself in ways that fuel you. And that might not look like manicures and pedicures. That might not look like going on a spa day or a retreat. That might literally look like locking the bathroom door for 10 minutes and doing breathing exercises so you can bring yourself back to center. So I don't know if I addressed your question, but I do know that there is an absolute need in our collective consciousness to take care of ourselves first as vehicles for the divine, because without that, everything else is at half-mast or worse.
And I think more people need to hear that, and that it's okay to take time for you, because I think that's ends up as society, like as you're saying, we got to do more, we got to be more. Everybody's got that kind of, it's around you. If you want to succeed, you have to, and it's like, wait, who actually says I have to do any of that stuff? You got to decide for yourself what's important. Where do you want to go? What really is, what is your path? Where do you, just because the people around you are saying you have to, does that actually mean that's the right answer for you? Slowing down and figuring that out.
So taking personal responsibility for your own happiness, I'll say for your own contentment rather so than happiness. It is imperative. Not only is it possible or is it a nice to have, it's actually necessary. So flipping over that assumption that suffer to succeed, it's no. Defining what fills me up and dedicating myself to it might be counterculture, but it's setting up the space for me to be the best that I can be in my workspaces, in my caregiving spaces, in my home life, in my professional life. That way I can show up as the best me, because the best me is on purpose. The best me is aligned with my values. So without that decree, without that necessity of filling your cup first, everything else suffers. And just like noticing and acknowledging that we've lived in a society that has necessitated suffering, it's tough. Like, we get to be the example. Once you recognize the need for this care and filling your own cup so that you can be most valuable to everyone else that you love, respect, and want to support, it really changes the game. But it's a tough mindset to flip over, because we've all been taught from birth that this is what it is and it's not anymore.
So what ends up being the hardest stumbling point as you're working with people to get to that point? How do you, my own mind is like, okay, intellectually, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, I see it, I get it. Now, how do I do it?
Yeah, it's what comes up the loudest is the identity piece and of being worthy of it. I can't do that because I don't deserve to be happy all the time. I'm meant to serve my family. I'm meant to serve this as a primary. And that identity shift right there of being worthy of investment, not being left to last. Like that is the hardest thing for people to overcome, is like, I just have to experiment with it in little ways, because we have this very all or nothing type of thinking in our industrial upbringing. That is, I either serve everybody else and leave myself to last, or I put myself first and forget everybody else. It's neither of those things. And so chunking out of that extreme thinking into, I think micro habits are one of the best ways to kind of begin this evolution. It starts as a seedling. Like, you don't expect an oak tree to be an oak tree in 1 year's time. You expect it to be a seedling, and then a sprout, and then like a sapling, right? So why do we put pressure on ourselves to be so all or nothing? So this micro habits, I think there's a book out there, a few of them on micro habits. One of the things that I took on myself first was The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Is just setting yourself up at the beginning of your day, whether that's you have 5 minutes or an hour or 3 hours, doesn't matter, but doing something that supports your well-being to set the tone for your day. For me, it's grown over time. At first, it was just drink water. I would put my water next to my bed before going to sleep, and then wake up and just drink the water. I knew that was healthy for me. I wasn't drinking enough water at the time. And that one micro habit for a couple of months there was all I did. And then I would get up and drink water, and then, I felt a little stiff, so I just move around a little bit. But those little incremental changes that don't seem so extreme is the foundation for changing the identity and knowing, well, I just did this one thing for a minute. Maybe I can do 3 minutes next time. And it gives you the experience of yourself that progress and change is possible. If we're not so, this has to change tomorrow, all of it. No, this one thing, and layering in these micro habits. So the book, The Miracle Morning, really helped me to see it for myself. And it's one of those things that I help for my clients to do, is to put the good things first in the morning. Because we all have had this experience of waking up and going right for the news, or waking up and going right for the social media, or right to the to-do list and getting up and starting the laundry, or whatever it is. If we just put a little crack in that space of like, one thing for me first, that we can expand over time. And having the temperance and the patience to know that it's a lifelong progression. Like, that's the thing that shifted for me the most, is knowing that I'm never going to be finished. I'm never going to have this concept of I've arrived, that like I am now the pinnacle of success, because that goalpost is always going to move. But knowing that I'm making a little progress in that moment and creating a daily habit out of that, that's been the thing that has created quantum shifts for people over time. But that you have to start somewhere. And that's the one place where I feel like everyone has the ability to start.
And I think what anyone hearing that is, I'm viewing that as being very freeing, to think that, okay, you're right. It doesn't have to be like this massive overhaul. You don't have to get all this stuff on the table. You don't have to just clear it all. It's like, take something and put it away, and I'm thinking that kind of in the mental sense of just pick one thing and work on that. Add your piece, add that, take a drink of water in the morning, something that will make it's a stepping stone, and it's a whole long path. So if you take that first step, now you can take a next step, and you can make your way down the path, but you're not going to be at the end of the path the second you start taking steps. You need to be patient.
Listen, for those of us who are ambitious and we see that we're really talented and we want to change the whole world, it's intimidating. I had a mentor over a decade ago that made it very clear to me by asking me a bunch of questions that I was very impatient with my business. I wanted my business to be up and running and thriving. And because it wasn't there, I was constantly giving myself over into overwhelm, constantly beating myself up for not being there yet. I was living in what Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy call the gap. I was not living in the gain. I wasn't measuring what was good in progress or little tiny wins. I was looking at this giant chasm that I hadn't yet crossed over, going, well, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And what do you think that does to your psyche? That tells you, you suck. You're not doing it right. Go home. Just quit now. And those thoughts are so deeply embedded in us. We don't need any more of those. We have to consciously put in I did something good. I did something right. So building the habit of positivity is one of those things that is self-love and self-care, because it is counterintuitive for much of what our human brain is designed to do. We look for anomalies and problems. Well, how about training our minds to look for the good things and the progress and measure the wins? So like, if you do take nothing else from this conversation, at the end of your day, give yourself 3 seconds to write down one victory from the day, or 2 or 3 bullet points of things that went well. Because if you set yourself up that way before bedtime, guess what that changes? How you feel in the morning.
Mm-hmm. That last thing that's on your mind, you're going to be subconsciously as you sleep, it's going on in there. So to have it be something positive, that alone can make a massive difference. And that takes a couple minutes tops. That's not a hard one. So it's like, yeah, put that phone down, stop scrolling, stop doom scrolling before you're falling asleep. Put that down. That is not putting your head in a good place. So I think that's brilliant. And I'm really hooked on that piece that you said about just micro steps, something small, pick a thing. It's a start. It gets you moving. Because I think sometimes that holds me back, because I see something like, I need to make this big change. And it's like, I feel like I need to do it all at once. And it just doesn't work that way. And it's hard to accept that, because we're supposed to be able to do it all, right? We're supposed to be able to just do things and be good at everything, and not just small steps.
Yep. And that's the difference between our thinking selves and our being selves, is we can conceptualize a cleared forest. But what does it take to actually clear the forest?
Oh boy. One tree at a time.
You got it right. One tree at a time. Not only the tree, but the limbs, and then the roots, so if you can conceptualize success, it's also self-defeating to expect, because you can see the end goal, for it to be there immediately. And that, like, in the world of instant gratification, it's the one habit I think that we're all learning that's bad for us, is that I see this and now I need to have it. We have such instant access to information, to philosophies, to ways of doing things, that it's almost like we get shiny object syndrome in our ability to focus. And so I'm only going to focus on this micro habit once a day. What is that going to give me? And we hop right over it. But if we measure it and track it over time, we get to see the progress real time. And then back to, Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, the gap and the gain, we get to measure the gain. And by putting ourselves in that frame of reference of what is good, what has been done already, what progress we have made, or the good things we've seen, it's from that place that more can happen. That's the momentum we get to experience, so that we can build more of it. Because what happens when you're angry or frustrated and you make decisions from that place? You get more anger and frustration. So if you want to build a world that you can see, whether that's more self-care for yourself, showing up as a better servant, a better service provider, a better caregiver, it has to come from that space of how has it been good already? Because that's the space that I'll be able to be most keen to looking at what the next step is. I don't have to see the whole staircase. I just have to see the next step ahead of me. But when you put yourself in that place of the gain, in that place of what's good, in your victories, or in that one new habit you're building, acknowledging that actually creates more of itself, because what we focus on expands, and what we measure improves. So we know that the brain is built to look for anomalies and problems. So if we can build our habits to counterbalance that, to look for the wins, to look for what's good, to look for the progress, we are actually creating momentum and defining success on our own terms that allows us to be more successful over time than get caught in the trap of the rat race, the hamster wheel, the I'm not good enough stuff.
So I've got the question then, if you go back to where you started to figure all this all out and put this together, what led you here? Were you at that point too of I'm spinning all the plates and I gotta how did you arrive here? Because that didn't happen overnight, right?
Yeah. And make no mistake, I'm still a work in progress. I'm just sharing what I've learned, and some of it's conceptual. in that, like, I'm still in practice. Like, doctors are always in practice. This is an ongoing practice of living well. I saw it because I grew up in a family that was entrepreneurial. My dad was an immigrant, and at home at the dinner table was constant talk about, what the real estate portfolio was doing or what the business was doing and what we needed to do. And so I never really had a separation between life and work. So when I went to college, got a degree, got a job in finance, I started to realize the world really was not what I had assumed. Everything was integrated. I started to see, people were sit down, shut up, behave, don't rock the boat. I'm like, but there's work to do. There's things we can improve. But people were conditioned in the work environment to not bring their whole self there, to want to keep things the way it was, even if it was misery. It was the misery they knew. And I was like, well, I feel like I'm dying here. I don't feel fulfilled. So I'm going to go try something new. But what that looked like on the outside was Alyssa's quitting again. Alissa can't make it. She can't sit down, shut up, and do the job and stay and get the gold watch. She's constantly resetting herself. What is she doing? I mean, she must be a real flake. I mean, this is the stuff that not only was I getting feedback from, friends and family at the time about, but it was what I was believing is like, oh, why can't I just be successful? Why do I have to constantly feel like I have to do something else? And so I did that a bunch of times. I was in financial services and I couldn't find the heart and soul in it, from everywhere from financial planning to banking to wealth management and beyond. That was the first 7-8 years of my career. And I finally left that once I had a mentor who told me, don't run away from stuff, but always make sure you're running to something. And that's where my pivots started to gain traction. And that was before I had children. That was before I met my husband. But that template of okay, so it's not quitting and giving up. It's I've hit a wall of something that I don't prefer, and I'm willing to experiment. I had to change how I was defining what those moments were. Was it I suck, or was it I'm in pursuit of something that I haven't found here that I thought I would? I went in with a lot of gusto, and by the time I hit that wall, I knew that I had searched everywhere in that context, and that what I was looking for wasn't there. And so I created it. That's what drew me to become an entrepreneur. That's what drew me to help people think about themselves first, because our world teaches us that we're not enough. And we get constant feedback from everywhere that is like the systems of suffering that have been set up, that you need to just knock off trying to be something valuable. Just go sit down and be a cog in the wheel somewhere. But I fought that notion really hard inside myself. And so I know you asked, where did I start? Where did this come from? This is the expression of my life's work, because I've been unwilling to settle for other people's definition of what I should be. And every time I've come up against that flag, I've had to retrain myself that it wasn't a stop sign. It's a checkered flag saying, go, go, go. This is the limit. Now you get to go past it. And so getting really comfortable with being uncomfortable. And again, I'm not done, but at the end of the day, I really think that progress can be made one step at a time if you allow yourself to reframe your story and see yourself as a success in the gain, not in the gap.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for joining us here today. This again is Alissa Bickar, and you can, you can find her on LinkedIn. You can find her everywhere as the Consultress. And